Hey everyone, Brian Zane here with my review of Clash of Champions 2019, and let's just say it was what it was. I'll get more into why I say that as we go on through the review. But let's begin with the first kickoff match for the Cruiserweight Championship as Drew Gulak defended against Humberto Carrillo and Lince Dorado, who on commentary, Aiden English said it was paws down, the biggest opportunity of Lince's career. Get it? Because he's a cat. Everybody gets time to shine in this matchup here. It's a traditional three-man style we've grown accustomed to in the company, where it's usually kind of a one-on-one thing with a third man cell on the outside. Then we have this big transition spot, and we go to another combination of one-on-one while the other third man's powdered out for a while. For example, Lince gets some time to shine early on with some high flying on the outside. Humberto really impressed me with his main roster, or I guess you could call it his pay-per-view pre-show debut. At one point, he does this kind of handspring move off the ropes, but as he's coming backward, he actually has Drew's arm hooked, picks him up for an arm drag. Really cool variation of the arm drag there. Ultimately, Humberto hits Lince with the Aztec press. You think he's got it won, but Drew slams Humberto into the corner post and dumps him out. He pins Lince, and then Lince forgets to put both his shoulders down, and the referee has to remind him to do it. And so then we finally get the 3 count. Drew wins the match, retains the championship. I give this one 3 stars out of 5. This is exactly the match I expected to see with these 3 guys. A good combination of the high flying, the striking, the submissions. One of my favorite parts of this match was at one point they were exchanging submissions before Drew just picks one of the guys up and hurls him in there, dude. But yeah, Drew retains the championship here. Good way to start the show. In your pre-show main event, AJ Styles defends the U.S. Championship against Cedric Alexander in a match that, quite honestly, I was really disappointed at by the end. I think it was one of the matches I was looking forward to the most going into it. And, you know, not every match on this show is going to be a barn burner, okay? That goes without saying. But this one, I was really hoping for more than what we got. Like, early on, Cedric is just really house of fire on AJ, but then Styles hits him with a Styles clash on the floor. Back in the ring, Cedric's got maybe 1 or 2 hope spots in there, but it's pretty much all AJ for the rest of the thing. It's phenomenal forearm, Styles clash for the second time in the middle of the ring. AJ, clean as a whistle, beats Cedric here to retain the championship. Then afterward, the OC come in and they stomp Cedric a couple times, and that's pretty much how the whole thing ends. I give it 1 star out of 5. Some sizzle at the beginning, but besides that, it was just pretty much almost a squash match. I didn't expect Cedric to win, but I didn't expect him to lose so resoundingly as he did here. I hope it's not the end of Cedric's push or his feud with Styles. I hope we see more of these guys. I hope we just see more time given to these two, because I know can be amazing. The show officially begins the Raw Tag title match as Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman, who I'm calling Strollins, taking on Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler, who I call Rudolph. Rollins takes a lot of the abuse in this matchup here. Ultimately tags in Braun. Big beefy hot tag by the big guy here. Near the end though, Strowman checks Robert Roode, who then falls into Rollins, and he eats it on the corner. And so then Strowman gets dumped out. Glorious DDT onto Rollins, and the challengers win the belt. So from one makeshift team to another, Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler are your new Raw Tag Team Champions. I give this one 2.5 stars out of 5. It's a solid enough match, though, with a pretty predictable finish. It's a means to an end to help build more heat for their match later in the night for the Universal Championship. They show a promo for NXT going to the USA Network very soon. They've run a couple of variants of this promo in the last week or so, but one thing caught my eye where they say, if you don't want BS, then this show is for you. Very odd flex for them to have a promo with that kind of verbiage in there in the middle of a main roster show. They're kind of indirectly bashing, like, hey, if you don't want this shit, then you should watch NXT. It's our much better shit. Backstage, Braun Strowman blames Seth for their tag title loss. He says that Seth's going to get those hands. We then go elsewhere backstage to a great Becky Lynch promo, and then it's time for the Smackdown Women's Championship as Bayley defends against Charlotte Flair. It's a good thing Charlotte's wrestling in her hometown on this night, because really there's no other reason to cheer for her as a babyface. And while I do love the fact that Bayley is wearing tights that say role model on them now, oh, so ambiguous. Really short match here. Another really surprisingly short match for very different reasons, though, because Charlotte starts out hot, works Bayley's leg, and as the referee separates the two of them, Bayley undoes the bottom turnbuckle pad, and then she drives Charlotte face first into the exposed turnbuckle bolt, covers her, and wins. She retains the championship in like less than maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and then she just like hightails it out of there. She sprints up the ramp and out the back. That was pretty funny and visual there to see her just like totally peace out, not want anything to do with Charlotte after that. I give the match 1.5 stars out of 5, but the star rating doesn't really tell the story, because the match definitely gets Bayley over as this opportunistic new heel. But boy, I think we were all expecting a little bit more from this match than what we ultimately got. Are we just running heavy already? SmackDown Tag Championships up next as Big E and Xavier Woods of the New Day defend against the Revival. And of course, Xavier is rocking the big fat knee brace, big target on his knee as a result of what the Revival did to him a few weeks ago on TV. Earlier in the match, Dash clotheslines Big E off the apron, and they both land hard. And in Big E's case, it's like Jean-Claude Van Damme in the Street Fighter movie. He lands hard. Big E's worked over for a good long time until he finally gets the fiery hot tag by Xavier here. Revival hit the Shatter Machine on Big E on the outside, so he's totally incapacitated. We get this really cool couple of beats here where Xavier and the Revival lock eyes, and they all know what's about to happen, but Xavier is not quite ready to accept his fate just yet. He goes down swinging, hitting everything that moves, but ultimately the Revival in the numbers game is too much for him. At that point, I noticed in the hard cam, someone's got a sign saying, "Throw a pancake at my booty." Like, dude, this is not the time. Shatter Machine to Xavier, but they're not done yet. They start targeting the leg, and even at this point, Corey Graves, who's a huge Revival homer, is starting to question their tactics. We get this kind of inverted figure four leg lock on Xavier. He's trying to reach for the ropes, and Dash is on the outside right and is just talking trash to his face as Xavier reaches out, ultimately taps out, and the Revival win the match and are your new SmackDown Tag Team Champions. And now they're the first team to have won the NXT, Raw, and SmackDown belts. And for a team that's been considered like constantly being buried or undermined or underutilized, they sure managed to keep themselves relevant in a lot of respects. I give this one 3 stars out of 5. Good match here by these guys. They certainly did a good job telling a story and making everything look very painful. From the bump that Big E took on his back on the floor to the Shatter Machine also on the outside, and the pain that Xavier was expressing with his knee and everything. Just they made it look so painful, and I think that told a really good story ultimately.
Our WWE Women's Tag Team Champ.
My bad, other Carmella.
Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross defend the women's tag team titles against Fire and Desire up next. Some good character work early on by Nikki here where she swivels her hips in Mandy's face to kind of mock her. Kind of a callback to last week when Mandy called Nikki ugly on the microphone. And then about a minute later, R-Truth and the League of Jobbers make a cameo appearance because even the 24/7 championship needs some love at Clash of Champions. There's actually a brief moment where Alexa rolls R-Truth up with the schoolboy to try and win the belt. It's a 2 count, and then R-Truth and all the lads leave the scene. Alexa takes probably the biggest bump she's taken all year by getting a Beal from the top rope down onto her back. She's hit with Mandy and Sonya's double team move, but Nikki makes a save at the very last second. Nikki hits Mandy with her drape over neckbreaker to win the match, and Alexa and Nikki retain the championships. I give this one 2.5 stars out of 5. It's a solid match, not a great match, but not a bad one either. The more Alexa and Nikki are working together as a team, the more over they're getting, and I'm finally kind of buying into it. But like I said before on Who Wore It Better, I really want to see more character work with these two. I want to see like a series of vignettes or something, or even an online exclusive where we see them kind of like going through like whatever town they're in, and we see their contrasting, personalities, where Alexa's kind of the prima donna and Nikki's kind of the loose cannon. I want to see some more of that kind of interaction. Show us more of the odd couple pairing and give us more reason to really like these characters. Intercontinental title match up next as Shinsuke Nakamura with Sami Zayn in his corner defense against The Miz. Sami doing his little ska dance, and his entrance with the neck brace is just comic gold. He introduces Shinsuke, who's got some updated attire and a red cape. In the matchup, as it begins, Sammy's on the live mic once again doing kind of the Leo Rush thing. Although a couple of minutes into the match, though, the mic just mysteriously just like cuts out, and then a couple minutes after that, Miz grabs the mic from Sami and just hucks it up the ramp onto the stage. Probably would have made a lot more impact if Sami were able to talk on the live mic the entire time. Anyway, Miz is working Shinsuke's leg here, Shinsuke with his strikes and whatnot. Miz dodges a Kinshasa, gets the figure 4 locked in, which is a big pop in North Carolina. Get a rope break though. Sami with a well-timed trip. Shinsuke with a knee from behind. We get a kick out though. Miz hits a skull-crushing finale on Shinsuke, and then Sami once again on the apron. Miz chases him around for a bit, but it costs him a Kinshasa in the ring, and Shinsuke retains that IC title. I give this one 3 stars out of 5. I think this is a pretty good matchup here. I do think that the constant interference by Sami, though it does play into his character, does kind of make Shinsuke look like a chump at times. I mean, he's supposed to be a heel, but I've always kind of bought him as more of like a competent heel who like doesn't really need a manager per se. I'm still not 100% sold on this pairing of Shinsuke and Sami. I like them individually. I love Sami's shtick, and I love his comic, chicken shit heel antics. But as a duo, the jury's still out for me. Up next, Becky Lynch defends the Raw Women's title against Sasha Banks, and I will say, during the introductions, I thought they were just telegraphing the hell out of a title change here, just because of how the commentary was building up Becky so much in her intro, almost to the point of excess. Spoiler alert, there is no title change here, but we'll see how we get to that in a minute or so. Very physical match by these two gals. They know each other so well, and their personalities especially just shine through here in this matchup. I mean, as heel Sasha Banks, what a sight for sore eyes. I missed that whole side of her character desperately. But this is a really good match here. They're really trying to do a lot of holds and counter hold attempts for their respective finishers. One point, Becky is hit with 2 consecutive backstabbers and put in the bank statement. She's able to get out of that. Sasha grabs 2 chairs. She distracts the referee with one of them, hits Becky with the other one, but we get a kick out from that. Sasha's very frustrated. She can't put Becky away yet. She grabs the chair once again. The referee takes it out of her hand, and while Sasha's back is turned, Becky's got a chair of her own, goes to hit her, but Sasha sidesteps, and the referee takes all of it in the arm, and he goes down like a sack of potatoes. And so then they have a big old fight into the crowd, up the stairs, through the concourse, back down the stairs, into the ring area once again. By this point, we finally learn the match has been thrown out. They say on commentary, oh, by the way, match ended DQ because Becky hit the referee with the chair. And so the fight just keeps going on. It finally ends when Becky hits Sasha multiple times with the chair for some revenge, gets her to disarm her with the assist from the chair before the officials split everything up. So I'm going to give this one 3.5 stars out of 4. This was one of my favorites tonight. I dinged the score a little bit because of the DQ finish, but that post-match brawl at the end was really cool stuff. Obviously, setting stuff up for a rematch next month at Hell in a Cell, but this is a great first chapter in this renewed rivalry. WWE title match up next as Kofi Kingston defends against Randy Orton in a SummerSlam rematch. Bit of a lukewarm reception here for Kofi. Now, I wonder, is the crowd tired of Kofi, or are they just tired in general because of the length of the show? That will be a recurring theme for the rest of the night. Good back and forth early on here, although Orton gets the advantage after a thumb to the eye, followed by just dumping Kofi over to the barricade. Kofi starts making his comeback, but runs right into Randy's trademark backbreaker and a kick out. We get the SOS out of nowhere by Kofi later on, kick out by Orton. Orton hits the RKO. Kofi is able to get a foot on the rope, so he is saved for a bit there. Orton signals for the punt. Bit of a while since we've seen that happen, but he whiffs it like Charlie Brown. Kofi hits Trouble in Paradise, and he got all of it there. Kofi wins the match and retains the championship once again. I give this one 3.5 stars out of 5. This is a really great matchup. A little slow at times for my taste, but that can be overall forgiven in the wake of what the other action in their story they are telling in this thing here. But once again, Kofi stands tall as a champion. If we're using last year's feud between AJ Styles and Samoa Joe as a template, then that means they're going to have another match at Hell in a Cell for the championship. And what's going to happen there? Who's to say? Backstage, the Street Profits talk about the King of the Ring finals for Monday Night Raw. They do some Lion King references there. King Booker shows up, and Angelo Dawkins says he wants to be knighted. Booker T tells him to get his mind right. He walks out of the shot, walks back in, says his catchphrase, and there we are. In your semi-main event, no DQ match as Roman takes on Rowan. This is going to be hard to keep these two names apart. There are a lot of rumors day of the show where they said that this match was going to be the main event, which I would not have been a fan of because yes, this match this storyline probably is the most interesting on SmackDown, but on a show called Clash of Champions, you got to have a championship match as your main event. But crisis averted. Anyway, the action starts out pretty fast from the get-go. Roman grabs a kendo stick, but Rowan turns the tide with some steel stairs, brawling in the crowd for a bit. Roman gets a moment to shine, but then Rowan cuts him off and takes him to task. At one point, he even exposes the top of the LED board in the apron and slams him onto the regular apron, but oh, it's exposed now. Roman fights back with a Samoan drop, goes for a Superman punch on the outside, but Rowan catches him, tosses him up for a powerbomb, and just bombs him through the announce table. Somehow, Roman kicks out once they're back in the ring. More crowd fighting through another table. Onto the stage, Rowan grabs the camera jib, but Roman cuts him off and does some crane swinging himself. Suddenly, as he's going for a spear in the outside, Roman is cut off by Luke Harper, back on TV for the first time in a freaking eon. Rowan hits the Iron Claw in the ring to win the match, and the Bludgeon Brothers are back together once again. I'm going to give this one 2 stars out of 5 because this match was really, on the whole, very, very slow and kind of a plodding one, except for a couple of bright spots here and there, like the big powerbomb to the table and the jib cam stuff. I wasn't really feeling this match for some reason. And also the finish, well, I'm glad to see Luke Harper back. I'm kind of surprised we're doing this this whole reunion with these guys once again. I assumed we were going to be getting an Erick Rowan singles push. That's what we were going for. But now he's leaving one tag team with Daniel Bryan to go to another tag team with Luke Harper. And I don't know if that's a lack of faith in him as a singles guy or what the deal is. Or maybe it's going to be, in this case, it's going to be clearly like Rowan is the leader of the two and Harper is taking direction from him, as opposed to when they were the Bludgeon Brothers before and they were like on equal footing. Will that dynamic be different now that Rowan's established himself as more of like this master manipulator? Time will tell. I guess I'll see what happens next, but clearly this feud between Roman and Rowan is not over yet. In your main event, Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman, tag team champs no more, but now they're fighting for Seth's Universal Championship to close out the show. Braun starts out fast, Seth starts out faster, but Braun kicks out of 3 super kicks and a frog splash right from the get-go. And the crowd, once again, kind of dead for this matchup. I think it could be a case of like, well, they're just busting out all these big moves early on, and the crowd's just kind of fatigued. Are they fatigued, or do they just not know who to cheer for at this point? Because this is babyface versus babyface. Strowman's just wrecking Seth's shit on the outside for a while, until finally Seth gets out of the way. Strowman tumbles over the German announce table. Multiple dives to the outside by Seth until the table just finally collapses. Strowman does tease a top rope chokeslam, and he's kind of pushing Seth down. Hits a top rope splash, and that really should be the end of the match right there. But Strowman bangs his knee up on the landing. He can't capitalize, and so we get a 2 count there. I mean, just seeing Strowman taken to the air like that is really impressive. Rollins hits 3 stomps. We get 3 kickouts, though. Strowman is looking incredibly tough here. Even Lesnar didn't kick out of 3 stomps. So then finally, Braun he catches Seth on the 4th attempt, goes for the running power slam, but Seth evades, hits a pedigree, followed by a 4th stomp, and Seth finally slays the monster and retains the Universal Championship and kind of takes the wind out of the sails of the fans by the end of this matchup. Be that as it may, I give it 3 stars out of 5. The sheer shock value of Braun's top rope splash, to me, puts it in that above average category, but I would say in terms of match quality, a bit of a step back from, say, Rollins versus Lesnar at SummerSlam. Like, a lot of the same beats were there, like big finisher, chopping down the big redwood, but it didn't have a lot of the same drama and storytelling that Lesnar match had, in my opinion. And I think Strowman, like I said, very strong looking to get up from 3 straight stomps. A lot of fans, I think, myself included, thought, well, shit, maybe this is going to be Braun's time to finally win it. And so then when he lost, you could just tell this audible kind of like, oh, this letdown sound from the audience there. They were finally coming around in the match. And then that finish, I think, just kind of like took the wind out of their sails entirely. After the match, Rollins celebrates on the ramp when the lights cut out, and it's the Fiend, y'all. Bray Wyatt hits Rollins' sister Abigail, then the mandible claw. We get a lot of big grunting and screaming and cackling as the show goes off the air, and it's clear we've got our Hell in a Cell Universal title match set for next month. My final grade for Clash of Champions 2019 is a C+. After what was, for all intents and purposes, a great SummerSlam, I feel their follow-up pay-per-view really failed to deliver. Pretty much a bland show overall. Except maybe for, the no DQ match, Roman versus Rowan. There weren't a whole lot of bad matches on this show, but there weren't a whole lot of good ones either. I think the highlights for me for this show were Becky and Sasha, and then, despite the DQ finish, Kofi versus Orton, and then the Bayley-Charlotte match was more interesting and entertaining than it was good, if that makes any sense. And also I think they had a smart move to have Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, close out the show. By and large, the crowd was really dead for the last third of this show. It's something we've seen time and time again as the company's moved on to these 4 and 5 hour pay-per-views. But how much of it is crowd fatigue due to the show length, how much of it is the characters aren't connecting with the fans anymore, or how much of it is a little bit of both. It's really hard to say definitively, but one thing we do know for sure is we've got a lot of setup from this show going into Hell in a Cell next month. A lot of those things are turning out to be rematches, but such is the world in which we live in today. But let me know what you thought about Clash of Champions in the comments section below. Give it a letter grade by going to the iCard in the corner of your screen. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.